Here is a story illustrating how reality surpasses imagination, signaling its presence from archived records. During the spring of 1805, Paris, the capital of France, was not under Napoleon's influence, but rather a cat's. This was a literal situation, not a metaphorical one. Pierre-Joseph Bonjour, an elderly bookseller from Rue Saint-Honoré, put forward his large Maine Coon, Hugo, as a candidate for the title of Honorary Book Protector. This title was symbolically given to individuals at the time for their cultural contributions. The situation escalated when approximately 20 Sorbonne students presented a petition to the Committee of Public Education. Their petition outlined the animal's merits, stating that the cat consistently drove away thieves who slept in the archway by the bookstore, thereby ensuring access to knowledge. The petition was accepted for review. On a particular March day, deputies engaged in a serious debate about the appropriateness of awarding an animal and whether it would diminish the institute's prestige. The official record of the meeting states, Bonjour Hugo, a cat living on Rue Saint-Honoré, cannot be considered a legal entity, but the public reaction necessitates a compromise. The compromise reached was that the cat would not receive the award, but a brass plaque bearing the inscription, Hugo, the bookkeeper, served here, was installed on the shop. This plaque endured through 3 revolutions and was lost only in 1940. It is believed to have been taken by a German patrol during the initial period of the occupation. Fact 2. In October 1944, Winston Churchill traveled to Moscow. He arrived not just with a group of diplomats and a case of Armenian cognac, but also with a painted stool from London. This furniture item was codenamed Pedestal Number 2 and was used for photography and filming to enhance the Prime Minister's height in group pictures. Churchill, standing at approximately 167 centimeters, felt self-conscious about his stature, particularly when around military personnel. At Kremlin events, he would subtly position the pedestal beneath a carpet behind him for full-length photographs. This detail came to light accidentally when British footage showed an aide moving a carpet to reveal the painted wooden riser. Soviet operators found this amusing, and one, Yakov Bogdanov, noted in his diary, Winston skillfully got onto the box as if he had trained his whole life to be taller than a marshal. The item was later added to the collection of the British Cabinet War Rooms Museum and remains there today under the made-up name Diplomatic Luggage Stand. Fact 3. In the year 1871, Prussia seriously debated banning cucumbers. This ban was intended for all types, green, salted, and pickled. The catalyst was a mass food poisoning event in Danzig, present-day Polish Gansk, which affected over 700 individuals after they consumed cucumbers from the market. Newspapers displayed headlines like, Russian vegetable threatens the Reich, and sour spies on the shelf. A local physician, Hans Drazen, released a paper arguing that cucumber acid activates latent diseases and causes dark moods within the populace. Those against the vegetable capitalized on the situation. Conservatives called for the immediate confiscation of all Eastern preserves, viewing them as detrimental to discipline. The discussions escalated to the Reichstag. Despite the lack of solid scientific evidence, a temporary prohibition on the sale of homemade pickles in public markets was enacted for a period of 3 months, driven by widespread panic. Residents' diaries from that era recorded ironic notes. The land has deteriorated. No pickled cabbage, no cucumbers, all to keep evil away. Drazen faced mockery in scientific publications a year later, but the notion of gloomy food continued to appear in works on psychological well-being for an extended period. Fact 4. Roman Emperor Elagabalus held a banquet where guests died from laughter in the truest sense of the word. Historian Cassius Dio reports that one of the Roman feasts featured numerous farces and unexpected events. The highlight was a room decorated with roses. The hall ceiling was constructed from fabric with large baskets of petals concealed within. Upon a given signal, these petals were dropped. The sheer volume of petals caused guests closer to the center to suffocate. The fabric gave way, roses inundated the space, and several individuals were effectively buried beneath the aromatic layer. Contemporaries referred to this as suffocation by fragrance. Historians continue to discuss the extent of exaggeration in these accounts, but records confirming the purchase of several tons of petals do exist in the imperial court's financial records. It is said that one senator commented the following day, "Such a death is not a shameful way to end one's career amidst roses and wine." This incident later served as inspiration for artists and poets, ranging from symbolists of the 19th century to comic creators of the 20th century. Fact 5. In the year 1883, England enacted a law banning laughter within Parliament. The specifics are documented in the Proceedings of the House of Commons. This measure was prompted by several incidents where MPs, during intense debates, erupted in uncontrolled laughter, thereby disturbing the proceedings and causing delays. A notable instance involved a parliamentarian, Sir William Smith, who shared an anecdote about two lords' rivalry, leading to widespread laughter in the chamber. The Speaker of the House intervened, demanding that the shameful displays cease. Later, rules of restraint were established, containing the stipulation, "Laughter in sessions is prohibited." This law remained in effect until the early 20th century, at which point it was disregarded as outdated. Contemporary diaries include humorous accounts of MPs discreetly sharing smiles and stifling laughter while concealing their faces behind documents. Fact 6. In the mid-20th century USSR, there was a peculiar system known as honorary building custodians. These individuals, typically the senior resident of an apartment building, were tasked with more than just keeping the common areas clean. They also oversaw the residents. According to a document from Moscow's archives, these women, mostly retired, were given extra pay and symbolic commendations for their role in upholding order and the moral atmosphere. It's noted that they sometimes got involved in domestic conflicts, with stories suggesting their involvement prevented families from breaking apart. The role was especially prestigious in buildings housing well-known writers or party functionaries, where these custodians acted as genuine keepers of revolutionary order. This was a singular occurrence globally, as no other country had an official position for building supervisors with comparable authority and recognition. Fact 7. During the Middle Ages in Europe, charm letters were popular. These were documents written by hand, believed to offer protection from diseases or troubles. An archive in England holds a letter from the year 1422, which was not directed to a person, but to a tree. The letter requested protection for an apple tree against drought and pests. It also included a promise from the garden's owner to sacrifice a chicken if the tree survived and produced fruit. The letter's content was enhanced with drawings and spells. These types of letters were frequently copied and inherited. Historians point out that, despite their seemingly superstitious nature, these documents had considerable social significance. They reinforced the bond between humans and nature and acted as a form of agreement regarding responsibility for the harvest. Fact 8. During the Tang Dynasty, in an ancient Chinese province, men were forbidden from wearing black boots. The law was enacted following an event where an official, having lost favor, donned this specific type of footwear, which the authorities interpreted as a direct challenge to the emperor. Penalties for breaking this law included a fine and public disapproval. Historical records indicate that following the introduction of this prohibition, the prevalence of men wearing black footwear significantly declined, and these boots came to represent a form of covert opposition. On occasion, individuals would conceal black boots during the night as a clandestine way to voice their dissatisfaction. This particular aspect developed into a distinctive cultural code and continues to be referenced in research concerning ancient Chinese attire and political history. Fact 9. In the year 1925, the United States of America initiated a campaign to combat dangerous laughter. This was the term used by medical professionals for bouts of uncontrollable giggling that could lead to seizures and, at times, temporary unconsciousness. There was a documented instance in one state where a student laughed so intensely that she required a week-long hospital stay. As a result, authorities provided guidelines for schools and workplaces banning humorous assemblies and jokes directed at management. Local newspapers featured articles with titles such as "Is Laughter an Enemy of Health?" and "When Merriment Turns into Sickness." While the campaign faced criticism, many viewed it seriously, with doctors stating that episodes of laughter might indicate nervous disorders and needed medical consideration. Fact 10. The year 1898 marked a unique event in the Russian Empire, the first and sole instance of a mass court proceeding against spectral entities. In a small town within the Smolensk province, a local landowner initiated legal action against ghosts, claiming they disrupted operations at his estate. His account detailed doors opening spontaneously at night, accompanied by audible footsteps and peculiar noises. The court heard testimony from witnesses and carried out interrogations. The final judgment explicitly declared, "While ghosts are not legally recognized as subjects, the prevailing circumstances necessitate action." Consequently, the court advised engaging a priest for the building's consecration, alongside enhancements to security and illumination. This affair garnered considerable attention in the press, with publications humorously referring to it as a trial of shadows and a legal standoff with the beyond. Fact 11. In the era of the Venetian Republic's peak, it was customary to organize boat races, known as regattas. However, in the year 1627, an experiment took place in St. Mark's Square. The competitions were opened not only to men, but also to dogs. Specially designed boats were built for the four-legged participants to row. The organizers stated their aim was to demonstrate who among them was the best rower. Despite initial doubts, the event drew a large audience and even sparked protests from some conservative individuals. The outcomes were documented in historical records, with specifics. A mixed-breed dog named Sparta emerged victorious, evidently possessing a good understanding of oar handling and successfully outperforming even trained Great Danes. This occasion was remembered as the Dog Regattas and remains a notable mention in sports history as one of the most peculiar experiments. Fact 12. During the medieval period in England, specifically between the 13th and 14th centuries, a law was enacted that forbade men and women, unless they were spouses, from being out on the streets simultaneously on any given day. Breaking this law resulted in a penalty, typically a fine, and public disapproval. Historians suggest that this peculiar ordinance was implemented as a means to regulate public morals and avert scandalous situations, though the exact motivations are not detailed in historical records. Narratives exist in chronicles about rural inhabitants who covertly altered their outing days to prevent meetings with individuals of the opposite gender. This legislation persisted for more than a decade before being abolished following public outcry. Records show a considerable number of legal disputes concerning the understanding of this regulation. Instances occurred where married partners were penalized with fines if their daily routines were not aligned. Fact 13. In the year 1926, in Dresden, Germany, a case was recorded which was later referred to as the Flying Cows Affair. A number of eyewitnesses stated that they observed cows at a local farmer's farm unexpectedly start to ascend into the air and remain suspended above the earth. Initially, local newspapers considered this account to be a prank or a fabrication, but following an official inquiry, it was established that the incident was caused by a powerful gust of wind and an optical effect resulting from light reflection in the morning mist. Despite this, the event gave rise to many stories and served as a basis for satirical illustrations in print media. Some researchers pointed out that it was this specific event that inspired surrealist artists to create works depicting flying animals in the future. Fact 14. At the beginning of the 18th century in Russia, under Peter I's court, there was a trend for wearing wigs made from the hair of one's own pets. Adherents of this fashion believed it fostered a stronger bond with nature and showed loyalty to their animals. Wigs fashioned from horse manes, sheep's wool, and even the hair of uncommon dog breeds were highly favored by the aristocracy, especially in winter. A few existing portraits show nobles with these wigs, a fact that later surprised and confused fashion historians. The individuals who wore them asserted that the wigs held a unique energy and aided in preserving their health. Fact 15. A strange decree existed in medieval France stipulating that individuals unable to sing were not permitted to wear red stockings. Red was viewed as an emblem of happiness and skill, and this policy aimed to motivate people to acquire singing abilities. Paris City Chronicles document that during yearly fairs, officials would assess the talents of those walking by. Individuals who failed to sing even a single song were required to switch their stockings for gray or black ones. This rule frequently resulted in amusing incidents where people would hastily learn songs just before inspection to keep their privilege of wearing a vibrant clothing accessory. Subsequently, in the 18th century, the decree was abolished, yet the custom of red stockings persisted as a representation of artistic flair. The 16th fact concerns an event in New York in 1906. At a contemporary art exhibition, a piece was displayed that was, in essence, an empty frame. The artist, Jonathan Smith, a young individual, explained that his painting was lost during transit, resulting in only the frame remaining. Rather than offering apologies, he asserted that this was an artwork symbolizing the void and disorder of contemporary existence. The exhibition generated considerable discussion and split opinions among attendees. Some viewed it as a stunt, while others interpreted it as deep philosophical commentary. The artwork, named Nothing, emerged as an icon of conceptual art and continues to be listed in major gallery inventories, with the frame itself housed at the Museum of Modern Art. Fact 17. An astonishing event took place in London in 1852 during a theater show. A live moose walked into the hall during a performance. The animal moved calmly through the audience, showing no fear, and made its way onto the stage. Witnesses reported that no one attempted to remove it. Actors continued their play, and the moose appeared to be integrated into the performance. It was later learned that the animal had escaped from a nearby private zoo. This occurrence led to many jokes and satirical cartoons, and the theater was nicknamed the Moose Theater. New safety measures were introduced in theaters after this event to avoid similar unexpected occurrences. Fact 18. At the beginning of the 19th century, Japan prohibited the use of mirrors in the residences of senior officials. The belief was that reflections might divert attention from crucial responsibilities and lead to adverse outcomes. Polished metal plates, specially treated, were used instead of mirrors, offering only a dim reflection. The prohibition was so severe that an imperial order declared, "No official shall gaze into a glass mirror so as not to scatter the strength of the spirit." Mirrors were viewed as a hazardous possession until the mid-century, with restrictions slowly being removed as Western technological influence grew. Fact 19. An unusual campaign occurred in New York in 1945. For several days, men in giant vegetable costumes, such as carrots and cabbage, paraded on the city's central streets. This initiative was a promotional effort by agricultural cooperatives intended to encourage the purchase of local produce in the post-war era. However, the event surpassed ordinary promotional activities. Witnesses who observed the vegetable giants described experiencing mild fear and disorientation, akin to stepping into a fairy tale or a dream. Media coverage referred to a fantastic vegetable invasion, and the advertising campaign generated a wide array of reactions, from amusement to confusion. Later, such events became common in marketing, yet this particular instance remains notable as the most peculiar. Fact 20. A custom existed in medieval Spain requiring newlyweds to wear clothes studded with small spikes during the initial days following their marriage. The purpose was to repel evil spirits and jealous neighbors. The material used for these garments was costly, and the spikes were made by hand from metal and wood. It was thought that only genuine love could endure the burden and awkwardness of such attire. Historical accounts from the era mention that some couples found it challenging to move, occasionally tripping and laughing, which symbolized the robustness of their bond. This practice ended in the 16th century, yet its remnants are preserved in certain folk songs and tales. Variant 5. In medieval Spain, there was a tradition where newly married couples, in the days immediately after their wedding, were expected to wear garments covered in small spikes. The intention behind this was to keep away evil spirits and envious neighbors. The fabric for these special clothes was quite expensive, and the spikes were meticulously crafted by hand using metal and wood. The belief was that only real love could tolerate the heaviness and inconvenience of wearing such outfits. Contemporary chronicles describe how some pairs struggled to walk, sometimes faltering and laughing, which served as a representation of their relationship's fortitude. This custom stopped in the 16th century, but its echoes can still be found in some folklore songs and legends. Fact 21st. In the year 1892, a peculiar event took place in Vienna with the well-known composer Joseph Strauss. At one of his concerts, the orchestra abruptly ceased playing. The reason was that the conductor had misplaced the score and was trying to accompany the musicians from memory. While the audience started to murmur about the interruption, Strauss himself appeared on stage with a substantial book. This book, however, was not a musical score, but a restaurant menu. He proceeded to read aloud the names of various food and drink items for a few minutes, causing sincere amusement among the attendees. The concert continued, and this incident achieved legendary status, frequently shared in jokes about classical music. Fact 22nd. A law in a medieval English village forbade women from going outside with a man if the wind was strong. The reason was a belief that the wind might carry off a woman's soul, putting her at risk without a guardian. This law was followed strictly, and those who broke it were fined and publicly shamed. Historical records tell of families changing their plans, waiting for the wind to calm down so the women could leave the house. The law faded away by the late 14th century, but folklore continued to pass down cautions about the wind and its strength. Fact 23rd. In the year 1906, Moscow saw the beginning of a unique tradition, a yearly contest for the finest costume assembled from everyday materials, hosted by a local newspaper. During one of the initial competitions, Ivan Petrov, a Moscow resident, showcased a costume made from discarded newspapers and worn-out shoelaces. He was declared the winner, and his appearance was so remarkable that reporters referred to him as the man of past and present. This custom continues to this day, standing as a testament to ingenuity and perseverance when resources are limited. Fact 24th. In the year 1860, a club of lovers of peculiar musical instruments existed in Paris. Among the most peculiar was an apparatus that was a massive seashell with bells and strings affixed to it. Players would perform by blowing into the shell while simultaneously strulling the strings, producing sounds that resembled the wind's cry and the sea's murmur. A performance with such an instrument was a notable occurrence, receiving numerous commendations. The club itself became recognized as the originator of experiments in music and acoustics. This instrument remains in the Paris Conservatory's museum, eliciting astonishment from contemporary visitors. Fact 25th. During the 1880s in the United States, railway workers experienced an unusual outbreak of sickness. The symptoms observed were persistent laughter, heightened excitement, and inexplicable tiredness. Physicians of that era referred to it as the laughing epidemic, attributing it to the stress and fatigue associated with their demanding jobs. Personal diaries of some workers mentioned that bouts of laughter would emerge unexpectedly and transmit among their coworkers as if it were infectious. While the precise origins of this phenomenon remain undetermined, this incident continues to be examined as a case of mass psychogenic disorder. Fact 26. Within a medieval Scottish fortress, there was a custom where guards had to sleep on duty with their eyes covered. The belief was that this practice would enhance hearing and sharpen intuition, thereby improving the likelihood of spotting an enemy. A chronicler recounted an instance where a blind watchman on duty at night successfully thwarted an infiltration attempt by detecting the attackers through the sound of their footsteps and their breathing. The effectiveness of this approach was so notable that other regions in the country started trying out comparable methods, even with the inherent dangers to the guard's personal security. This distinctive method of guarding has been documented in legends and writings from the 15th century. Fact 27. In the late 18th century in Venice, an uncommon approach was taken to defend against floods. The inhabitants would engage in large-scale festivities and dances atop their homes. The belief was that this action would deter malevolent water spirits and bolster the district's karma. On one occasion, during a particularly severe inundation, the residents took to their rooftops with musical instruments, staging a grand celebration. Following this, the water level did indeed recede quickly, though meteorologists subsequently explained it as a natural ebb. Regardless, the custom endured for several more decades, entering folklore as a demonstration of popular magic and collective unity. Fact 28. In the year 1905, postal employees in New York City organized a clandestine system of signals. This system was designed to alert colleagues about the presence of superiors and to avoid surprise checks. Rather unusual methods were utilized for this purpose, altering the placement of street receptacles, arranging newspaper kiosks, and even employing particular pigeon gestures. The inquiry uncovered more than 30 distinct signals, each carrying a specific designation. This activity continued for a period of several years. The situation changed when one of the delivery personnel revealed the network to reporters, leading to public outcry and subsequent changes in the postal administration. It is interesting to observe that comparable signaling techniques were also adopted by other entities, demonstrating the impressive inventiveness of individuals in bypassing administrative procedures. Fact 29th. Pottery with peculiar drawings was discovered by archaeologists in an ancient Roman villa. These drawings turned out to be comics made approximately 2,000 years ago. They illustrated scenes from daily life, as well as disagreements and jests between slaves and their masters, incorporating black humor and satire directed at the authorities. It is remarkable that such early instances of sequential imagery were lost for centuries and only rediscovered in the 20th century. Specialists emphasize that these drawings not only provided entertainment for the villa's inhabitants, but also functioned as a means of protest and critique, which was challenging to articulate verbally due to the stringent laws of that era. Fact 30th. An experiment aimed at developing invisible advertising was conducted in Tokyo in 1934. Special screens were mounted on building exteriors. By day, they seemed transparent, and in the evening, under illumination, they showed clear inscriptions. Nevertheless, in a district where power outages were common, inhabitants observed that the inscriptions materialized only when unobserved and vanished at other times. This led to the proliferation of tales concerning ghostly advertising and hidden messages perceivable only by chosen individuals. The experiment was recognized as an early application of technology that generates ambiguous perception and manipulates public attention. Fact 31. In the year 1927, Paris hosted a masquerade ball where a prohibition was established against masks featuring well-known politicians. This measure followed an incident where multiple attendees wore costumes that mimicked French and international leaders, leading to significant outrage and sharp criticism in the media. The event organizers determined that such masks fueled political arguments and detracted from the celebratory mood. Nevertheless, a number of guests covertly continued to wear these masks, which heightened the drama and memorability of the occasion. This prohibition is remembered as an instance of trying to regulate humor within upper-class gatherings. Fact 32nd. As evidenced by surviving papyri, ancient Egypt had a tradition allowing priests to wear wigs crafted from sheep's wool. This wool was colored in vibrant hues, serving as a symbol of their connection to the gods. This custom went beyond mere adornment. The wigs were regarded as sacred and were utilized in rituals to transmit divine power and wisdom. An ancient manuscript recounts a case where the chief priest altered the color of his wig, signaling the approach of a particularly blessed time. The importance of these customs was such that even pharaohs held the hair of their priests in high esteem, seeing them as channels for the influence of superior forces. Fact 33rd. At the end of the 18th century in England, bee fights emerged as a popular pastime, involving organized contests between specially trained bees. Farmers and nature lovers created venues for these battles, where bees from various hives competed, and onlookers gambled on the outcome. The belief was that these fights aided in managing colony quality and health, and also encouraged the breeding of new bee varieties. Records indicate that even members of the royal family attended such gatherings. Eventually, however, these fights were prohibited due to their cruelty. Yet for a period of decades, they were integrated into English country life and its folklore. Fact 34th. The year 1806 saw the creation of the world's first club for simultaneous reading in Vienna. Members would meet to read a book aloud together, intending to produce a distinct sound effect. A young philosopher initiated this concept, believing it could foster collective understanding and harmony. However, the actual outcome was a loud noise comparable to birds singing or the wind blowing. Despite facing criticism and mockery, the club continued for several years. Its activities encouraged others to develop new forms of collective art and performance. This endeavor is recognized as an early contribution to the evolution of sound theater. Fact 35th. In the year 1822, in Petersburg, a case was documented when a city fountain unexpectedly started functioning with Klaas. The cause was straightforward. A brewery situated nearby experienced a pipe rupture, leading to the beverage entering the water system. Initially, the inhabitants considered it a joke, but subsequently, many started arriving with containers to gather the peculiar drink. City officials promptly addressed the leakage, yet this occurrence was incorporated into urban lore, and a few artists created artworks featuring the kvass fountain. Common sayings suggested it was a present to the city for a celebration. Fact 36th. During the mid-19th century in England, there was a practice of conducting doll funerals. These were for small fabric or porcelain toys that children or their parents chose to discard. The solemn ceremonies involved real processions, farewell speeches, and musical accompaniment. The belief was that this granted the toy eternal peace, and it taught the child to release the past. Certain archives document these events in detail, listing attendees and the food served. This custom was common until the early 20th century, eventually fading as perspectives on childhood evolved. Fact 37th. In the year 1922, a prominent writer in Berlin initiated a contest for the finest story penned under the influence of a dream. Participants were instructed to document their narratives solely within the initial moments of awakening, while their minds remained immersed in the dream state. The outcome of the competition astonished the judging panel. Numerous submissions featured unconventional logic, striking imagery, and narratives that, while appearing fantastical, possessed a profound emotional resonance. This endeavor fostered subsequent explorations into creative processes bridging reality and the subconscious, thereby impacting the evolution of surrealism and related artistic disciplines. Fact 38th. During the 18th century, a tradition of night dances with masks began in an Italian city. For these dances, participants would put masks on their faces as well as their feet. Crafted from leather and fabric, these masks decorated the feet and imparted a unique smoothness and enigmatic quality to the movements. The belief was that this method allowed for the concealment of genuine intentions and the expression of emotions through means other than the face. The dances were conducted in secrecy, with participants protecting their performance techniques from outsiders. This distinctive art form influenced Italian theater and inspired numerous stage professionals. Fact 39th. In the year 1775, London saw an incident where a carrier pigeon delivered not a letter, but a request for assistance. The postal worker with the pigeon inadvertently fastened a small note to the bird's leg. This note was penned by a servant who had become trapped in the basement of a mansion. The message conveyed a plea for rescue and a concise account of his predicament. The pigeon, deviating from its standard flight path, proceeded to the closest postal station. Upon discovery of the note, a rescue mission was initiated. This occurrence was documented in the records of the London police as an instance of unforeseen salvation facilitated by an animal.
Факт 40. В российской Вележной XIX века custom existed whereby local blacksmiths would sing a specific protective song before commencing their work. The belief was that this process imparted enhanced durability and luck to the metal in their undertakings. These songs were transmitted from one generation to the next and were documented in ethnographic compilations from that era. While some researchers associate this tradition with ancient magical customs, the local populace considered it a component of a craft ritual intended to ensure the successful outcome of their labor and safeguard against adverse events.
Fact 41. In the year 1905, New York City witnessed an event where the aroma of coffee was unexpectedly dispersed in a public square, replacing the customary sense of flowers and freshness. This was a promotional trial conducted by a company seeking to draw the attention of people to their new coffee beverages. The fragrance was so potent that individuals passing by reported experiencing headaches and a sense of fatigue. Authorities intervened after several hours, prohibiting any further dispersal. This occurrence marked the world's initial instance of scent-based advertising, leading to unforeseen outcomes. Fact 42nd. During the 18th century, a law was in effect in one Italian province mandating that men wear headwear decorated with live flowers when in public. Those who broke this rule faced fines and public mockery. The purpose of this ordinance was to combat widespread depression and low spirits. The belief was that vibrant flowers worn on the head would boost morale and invigorate people. Historical records document cases of widespread flower buying and the establishment of dedicated workshops for crafting distinctive hats featuring fresh plant arrangements. This tradition remained in place until the century's close, shaping regional fashion and societal expectations. Fact 43rd. In the year 1806, a club of unusual hat lovers existed in London. Its members comprised not only aristocrats, but also individuals from creative fields. Hats featuring small mechanisms that chimed like bells or played brief tunes with each head turn were among the most favored items. These contraptions were powered by springs and weights, and their makers diligently refined them for the greatest impact. Many people on the streets watched with astonishment as pedestrians transformed into mobile musical devices. Eventually, this trend expanded across Europe, marking the era of Victorian ingenuity and refinement. Fact 44th. An unusual practice involving bird sacrifices was present in ancient Babylon. Rather than sacrificing them to deities, priests would set the birds free after attaching notes containing petitions and prayers. The belief was that this approach would ensure the gods received the requests more swiftly and distinctly. Archaeological findings include clay tablets with the content of these messages, along with evidence of thread fastenings on avian bones. The significance of this ritual was such that several chapters in Babylonian sacred writings are devoted to it, detailing the procedures for choosing birds and formatting the messages. Fact 45th. In the year 1926, in Berlin, an event took place involving a well-known architect's decision to experiment with living walls. He instructed that specific plants be installed on the facade of a building, designed to grow out of stone niches and produce a green covering effect. Unfortunately, mistakes in watering and the wall's design led to the rapid growth of moss and fungus, provoking complaints from the inhabitants. The city officials banned the continuation of these experiments, but the concept of living walls subsequently gained popularity in landscape design and city ecology. This instance is recognized as the initial documented effort to integrate architecture with nature. Fact 46th. The first use of electric lighting at a Parisian ball occurred in 1845, though it was not planned. At the peak of the evening, the system failed, leaving guests in total darkness, with the exception of the light bulbs illuminating the women's hats. This unforeseen outcome was met with admiration and sparked numerous jests. Press reports stated that Parisian ladies became like living lamps, and the fashion for glowing accessories rapidly spread to theaters and social gatherings. This event represented a pivotal moment in the adoption of electricity within society. Fact 47th. An ancient Greek custom dictated that at weddings, the bride and groom would offer bread and wine as sacrifices, rather than animals. This practice was reserved for certain days of the month. The belief was that during these specific days, gods were more receptive to prayers and bestowed happiness. Historical records show this rite was a crucial part of wedding ceremonies, representing fertility and abundance. It is noteworthy that this tradition persisted in certain Mediterranean areas up to the 18th century, albeit in a modified manner. Fact 48th. In 1922, London hosted a club where members competed in the art of whispering. This unique competition required participants to transmit a message as far as possible without making loud noises. Judges evaluated the accuracy of the message and how many times it needed to be repeated. The concept originated from a goal to enhance skills in secrecy and communication. The contests took place in enclosed rooms under strict regulations. The club operated for several years and contributed to advancements in covert speech and mimicry techniques used in espionage. Fact 49th. In the year 1868, Vienna hosted a ball exclusively for individuals possessing distinctive moles or birthmarks. The organizers were of the opinion that these skin markings imparted a unique charm and individuality, and the event was conceived as a display of beauty's natural variety. Attendees traveled from various nations, presenting their marks of fate. A number even applied artificial moles with the specific intention of gaining entry to the festivities. This occasion marked an early instance of themed balls, and images captured at the ball remain in Viennese archives, continuing to evoke surprise in modern times. Fact number 50. An unusual law existed in ancient China, forbidding the use of umbrellas during imperial celebrations. The belief was that an umbrella shadow might insult ancestral spirits and invite bad luck. Those who broke this rule were subject to harsh penalties, such as fines and public disapproval. Nevertheless, archaeological findings have revealed secret ceremonies where officials covertly employed umbrellas crafted from thin paper, decorated with symbols of well-being as protection from the sun. This regulation remained in effect for several hundred years and showcased profound cultural understandings of symbolism and rituals within China. Fact 51. A street performer emerged in London in 1842, utilizing water pipes instead of conventional musical instruments. His skillful tapping on pipes of varying diameters and lengths produced sounds, forming melodies that drew in many onlookers. The public would congregate to enjoy this unique music, prompting the local council to contemplate official authorization for these pipe orchestras. This event is recognized as an early instance of industrial materials being incorporated into street art. Fact 52nd. A law existed in medieval France that forbade men and women who were not related from exchanging gifts on the spring equinox. Those who broke this law faced a fine and public disapproval. The underlying belief was that gift-giving on this specific day could result in damaged crops and a lack of harvest. Historical records from that era document court cases where disputes arose over who was permitted to give gifts and who was not, and how the disregard for this rule instigated disputes among neighbors. This legislation remained in effect for several hundred years, illustrating deeply ingrained popular beliefs tied to the cycles of nature. Fact 53rd. In the year 1931, Berlin saw a case where the Postal Service temporarily ceased letter delivery. This happened because of a large-scale protest by staff who stopped working due to being humiliated for a mistake made by a manager. As a form of protest, they started sending paper cranes with the message, "We are silent," in place of letters. This action gained public attention and was followed by negotiations, leading to better working conditions. This event is recognized as one of the earliest instances of collective silent protest in Germany. Fact 54th. An ancient Roman practice involved gladiators wearing special amulets with depictions of animals before their battles. The intention was to acquire the strength and agility of these creatures. Amulets with lions, eagles, and snakes were the most sought after. Such amulets have been unearthed by archaeologists in gladiators' burial sites and within arena areas. The belief was that these charms offered protection from wounds and also provided courage during fights. Certain historians suggest that these amulets were instrumental in gladiators' victories and their widespread appeal to audiences. The 55th fact. In the year 1905, in New York City, a woman was granted permission to perform at concerts dressed in a man's suit, sparking a considerable scandal. Her reasoning was that the clothing boosted her confidence and aided her in challenging societal prejudices. The press covered her story with a degree of irony, and certain critics declared it a breach of order and propriety. Despite this, the incident initiated a movement advocating for sartorial freedom and had an impact on later cultural and fashion developments. Fact 56. A prevalent custom in medieval England dictated that blacksmiths should strike their anvils 3 times with a hammer before commencing work, a practice intended to awaken the spirit of the metal. This ritual involved the recitation of spells transmitted verbally across generations. Legends suggest that blacksmiths who disregarded this custom encountered setbacks and tool malfunctions. Historical records from that era document these rituals and their importance to artisans, underscoring the role of traditions in medieval manufacturing. Fact 57th. A fashion show in Paris in 1924 featured a collection crafted entirely from newspaper sheets. The concept originated from a young designer aiming to highlight the link between fashion and information. Even though the material was delicate, the garments sparked significant attention and debate. Spectators commented on the unique texture and the sounds made as the models moved, and critics offered a range of opinions, from praise to doubt. This endeavor marked an early historical use of non-traditional materials in high fashion. Fact 58. An old Japanese custom involves samurai gathering in a circle before a fight to perform specific combat songs. These songs were accompanied by rhythmic drumming on their armor. The belief was that this practice boosted their fighting spirit, improved focus, and fostered unit cohesion. Accounts of these rituals are found in Edo period chronicles, detailing pre-battle scenes filled with music and the sound of metal striking. These songs eventually became integrated into Japan's cultural traditions and musical legacy. Fact 59th. In 1865 year, in London, a physician suggested a novel approach to migraine treatment involving riding on large swings set up in specially designed halls. The physician believed that the rhythmic motion and shifts in body posture would enhance blood flow and alleviate strain. This practice soon became widespread, leading to the establishment of dedicated swing clinics in various city districts. Although scientific proof was absent, patients experienced improvements in their well-being, and the method remained in use until the beginning of the 20th century. Fact 60. A medieval fortress in what is now Germany had a custom. Every incoming commander was required to complete an ordeal. This involved staying in a dungeon all night with only a candle for light, remaining silent and in place. The purpose of this ritual was to show one's capacity for loneliness and readiness for challenges. Historical records mention commanders who passed this test honorably, and those who failed forfeited their command. This test was viewed as both a physical and a spiritual examination, crucial for building discipline and confidence in the military. Fact 61. In the year 1923, New York City witnessed a large-scale instance of what became known as synchronous yawning. The act of yawning spread among the city's inhabitants with remarkable speed, leading to apprehension among medical professionals and psychologists. A suggested cause was the widespread tension that persisted after World War I and the Spanish flu pandemic. To alleviate public anxiety, officials released guidelines on breathing exercises and meditation, and the event was documented as an unusual phenomenon of that period. Fact 62. During the 18th century in France, a tax on beards was established. Individuals who desired to maintain or grow a beard were required to pay a specific levy to the government. This tax was instituted by Louis XIV with the objective of regulating the outward appearance of his subjects and overseeing moral conduct. Many individuals attempted to circumvent this requirement by discreetly trimming their beards or by donning wigs. Historical records from that era document a considerable number of grievances and efforts to challenge the tax, alongside accounts from tax collectors detailing their often peculiar methods of collection. Fact 63. During the Middle Ages, a region in China had a tradition where newly married couples would plant a tree together following their wedding ceremony. This act symbolized the unity and enduring nature of their marriage. The ritual involved singing and dancing. The selection of the tree carried symbolic meaning. For example, a pine tree was chosen to represent steadfastness and a cherry tree to represent beauty and youth. Archaeological evidence of these wedding plantings is found in areas of former villages, and local folklore continues to recount these traditions as methods for reinforcing family ties. Variant 5. Fact 63. In a particular region of China during the Middle Ages, there was a custom where newly married couples were expected to plant a tree together after their wedding. This tradition symbolized the unity and lasting quality of their marriage. The ritual was accompanied by singing and dancing. The type of tree chosen held symbolic significance. For instance, a pine tree symbolized resilience and a cherry tree symbolized beauty and youth. Archaeologists have discovered these wedding tree plantings in the sites of old villages, and local legends still speak of these customs as ways to fortify family connections. Fact 64. In the year 1917, an event occurred in London where a newspaper mistakenly published an advertisement for live sheep sales instead of a concert announcement due to a printing error. This peculiar incident resulted in many calls to the newspaper's office and initiated a surge of jokes and parodies across the press. The most clever newspaper professionals leveraged this circumstance to gain more readers, and the episode was recorded in the annals of British journalism's oddities, becoming a frequent subject for satirical narratives. Fact 65. In the year 1834, Vienna witnessed an event that became permanently etched in the minds of its inhabitants. An incorrectly transmitted telegram resulted in a cherry pie recipe being delivered to the emperor's palace instead of an order concerning military maneuvers. The error stemmed from faulty code transmission, and initially the substitution went unnoticed. It was only several days later, as the order was being implemented, that confusion surfaced. Notwithstanding the awkwardness of the situation, the emperor personally sampled the pie, and from that point on, the recipe was referred to as the imperial secret. This narrative, documented in letters and official papers, came to symbolize how chance occurrences can alter the progression of affairs. Fact 66. A custom existed in medieval Italy where certain cities organized contests for the loudest laughter. People would assemble in the town square to showcase their skill in amusing the crowd and provoking sincere laughter. The judges assessed the loudness, sincerity, and length of the laughter. This practice was viewed as a method to boost spirits during challenging periods and foster community cohesion. Historical records include accounts of these events and narratives about the most renowned laughter artists of that period. Fact 67. In the year 1910, in Paris, an event occurred involving a famous artist who held an exhibition displaying solely empty canvases. His reasoning was that the color white represents the basis of all art, serving as a symbol of purity and potential. The audience split into two factions. One group praised the philosophy and concept, while the other viewed it as a prank or even an affront. This exhibition triggered vigorous discussions in the media and had an impact on the subsequent evolution of abstract art and minimalism. Fact 68. In the year 1895, an incident took place in a Russian city. Firefighters were called to a mansion to put out a fire, but upon arrival, they found a large group of street cats instead of fire. Eyewitnesses reported that the animals were on the roof and refused to move, hindering the firefighters' efforts. Special tools were needed to get the cats to leave, which amused and touched the local people. This occurrence is now remembered in city lore as an instance of unforeseen challenges faced by emergency responders. Fact 69th. An unusual event took place in New York in 1928. A homeless man was seen on a city street asserting that he was the living representation of a legendary ancient hero. His attire consisted of various colored patches, and he carried an antique sword, which he claimed Hercules had made. At first, people in the area regarded him as an odd vagrant, but the story soon reached journalists, generating considerable public reaction. Some interpreted him as a protest against the industrialization and impersonal nature of urban areas, while others viewed him simply as an eccentric individual. Fact 70. In the year 1896, Paris saw the emergence of a fashion for living statues at street cafes. Actors, pretending to be sculptures, remained still for extended periods. This custom originated as a way to amuse people walking by and to draw in tourists. It is noteworthy that in certain instances, passers-by genuinely believed the actors were actual statues, trying to converse with them or drop coins. This occurrence rapidly became popular throughout Europe and continues to be a part of street art even now. Fact 71. An ancient Roman tradition involved feasts without food. During these solemn meals, attendees would gather but refrain from eating, focusing instead on delivering toasts and sharing narratives. The belief was that these feasts bolstered the spirit and enhanced both speech and memory. This practice was especially favored by philosophers and orators aiming for mastery in public speaking. Archaeological findings, including letters and diaries from the period, confirm the existence of such gatherings. Fact 72nd. The year 1923 saw the demonstration of the first radio hat prototype in London. This device, integrated into headwear, enabled radio listening without the need for cumbersome technology. The design was intricate and weighed a few kilograms, yet it impressed people of that time with its originality. Despite its size, this invention served as the foundation for today's portable audio gadgets and represented the technical cleverness of the period. Fact 73rd. In the year 1941, in Moscow, during a frosty winter day, an unusual event took place. City utility workers engaged in clearing snow from the streets inadvertently halted the operation of a complete tram line. The cause was ice sculptures. For festive city adornment, artist-sculptors crafted large ice figures at tram stops and along the tracks. However, a sudden overnight frost transformed these decorations into an insurmountable barrier. Trams were immobilized, forming a jam, and passengers observed with astonishment the emergence of an ice wall on the streets. As a result of this occurrence, new regulations were established for placing winter decorations within the city. Fact 74th. Medieval England enforced a ban on men wearing red shoes if they were not of noble birth. The purpose of this legislation was to maintain social standing and deter claims to aristocratic privileges by lower social strata. Those who broke the rule faced fines and potential public disgrace. Nevertheless, cases of commoners wearing red shoes were documented and led to jokes and tales in urban taverns. The ban was lifted only towards the close of the 18th century. Fact 75th. A contest was held in Berlin in the year 1920 to determine the loudest and most sustained scream. The objective was to examine the potential of the human voice and its effects on mental states. Competitors performed in specially designed halls equipped with acoustic instruments, and their achievements were recorded by devices similar to today's decibel meters. The victor, who earned the moniker Thunderman, achieved local fame. This event spurred subsequent investigations into sound therapy and vocal training techniques. Fact 76th. An ancient Egyptian practice involved adorning sarcophagi with hieroglyphs and depictions of deities, as well as small paintings reflecting the daily life of the person who had passed away. Archaeological findings include sarcophagi that capture scenes of hunting, banquets, and even humorous events. This suggests a wish to preserve not just grandeur, but also the ordinary aspects of existence. These illustrations were intended for the afterlife and also functioned as personal memoirs, enabling future generations to understand the deceased's personality and routines. Fact 77th. In 1856, in London, one of the streets became the site of an unusual experiment. Local merchants organized a night without light, extinguishing all the lamps to test how accustomed people had become to street lighting. The outcome was unexpected. Passers-by began to get confused in the darkness, and several individuals found themselves in awkward situations, including falls and amusing collisions. In the following days, newspapers reported on how residents had gotten lost in their own city. The experiment served as a lesson for the city authorities, who subsequently enhanced the lighting and developed regulations for its use. Fact 78th. A custom was prevalent in medieval Japan of writing poems right on tree leaves during spring celebrations. Poets and admirers would assemble in gardens and, using ink, would apply haiku and tanka to the leaves, leaving the creations for those who passed by. This transient literary art form vanished with the wilting of the leaves, signifying the impermanence of life and beauty. Records have been kept of such gatherings, and modern Japanese artists find inspiration in this tradition for their performances and installations. Fact 79th. A trend for distinctive watches appeared in New York in 1928. The defining characteristic of these watches was that their hands moved backward on the dials. These watches were seen as representing a challenge to time itself and established customs. Initially, the city's officials tried to prohibit their use in public areas, stating that they could lead to confusion and disruptions. Nevertheless, the accessory's appeal increased, particularly among the youth and those in artistic fields. This trend mirrored the prevailing mood of the period and a drive towards new ideas and trials. Fact 80. During the 17th century, an Italian village observed a tradition known as shadow festivals. Villagers would convene in the town square during the evening, employing lanterns to fashion peculiar shadows and outlines against the house walls. These displays of light were enhanced by the narration of frightening and humorous tales, alongside performances by local entertainers. The belief was that this custom helped to deter malevolent spirits and bolster the collective spirit. This practice endures in folklore and has influenced contemporary theatrical and light festivals. Fact 81. A unique tradition began in Berlin in 1872, where living statues of mythical beings populated the city streets for the amusement of residents and guests. These performers, adorned with paint and intricate costumes, maintained stillness for extended periods, generating astonishment and admiration. This practice eventually evolved into an established urban tradition, with the living statues recognized as emblems of mystery and artistic expression. Certain contemporary scholars suggest that this very phenomenon was a catalyst for the evolution of street performance. Fact 82nd. A law existed in a medieval French province that forbade men from wearing footwear with toe points exceeding 20 centimeters in length. Those who broke this rule were subject to fines and public mockery. The reason for this prohibition was the belief that overly long shoe toes signified excessive pride and could impede walking, potentially causing injuries. Nevertheless, the trend for long shoe toes continued in specific social groups, resulting in odd occurrences and disagreements. Fact 83rd. The year 1910 in Vienna saw the first historical case of radio being employed for live music concert transmission. Technical constraints led to frequent signal disruptions, meaning listeners received not just the music, but also operator discussions and extraneous sounds. Nevertheless, this occurrence represented a significant advancement in communication and ushered in the age of radio broadcasting. Records and participant memories are kept in the archives of radio stations. Fact 84th. A custom in medieval Spain dictated that every new king was required to plant a tree in the palace gardens right after being crowned. This tree represented the start of a new period and fertility. On occasion, the planting of the tree was part of elaborate ceremonies featuring music and solemn addresses. Archaeologists discover the remains of these trees in ancient gardens, connecting them to particular monarchs, which aids in dating occurrences and grasping the cultural practices of that time. Fact 85th. In the year 1906, an unusual street performer emerged on a central street in St. Petersburg. He played a self-made instrument composed of empty bottles and metal cans. The tunes he produced attracted many onlookers, and local newspapers published pieces about him with titles like "Music from Trash." This event symbolized creativity and inspiration when resources were scarce, impacting the growth of street art within the city. Fact 86th. Ancient Egyptians had a practice of dressing cats in specific ornaments crafted from gold and gemstones. The purpose of this custom was to highlight the sacred status of cats and shield them from the influence of malevolent spirits. Discoveries of cat mummies adorned with these items serve as evidence of the profound respect these creatures commanded. Temple documents detail ceremonies where cats were presented with new jewelry, and their owners were granted blessings and protection against hardships. Fact 87th. In the year 1920, a London-based theater company debuted a play where actors communicated entirely through music and mime without uttering a single word. The audience initially viewed the show as a novelty, but quickly recognized its profound emotional depth and dramatic power. This pioneering effort marked a significant advancement for pantomime and encouraged numerous directors to explore and establish new styles of silent theatrical productions. Fact 88th. A tradition existed in medieval Europe whereby blacksmiths, prior to commencing work, offered a small metal piece, casting it into the forge's flames. This act was thought to guarantee success in their endeavors and safeguard against mishaps. Archaeological digs corroborate the existence of these ritual objects in blacksmithing workshop locations, and written records detail this practice as a significant component of artisanal ritual. Fact 89th. The first ever public library in an open-air setting appeared in Paris in 1935. Books were displayed on dedicated stands and shelves, available for anyone to access. This undertaking proved to be a notable cultural development and was backed by the authorities because it encouraged literacy and fostered an appreciation for reading within the community. The collection of books was consistently refreshed, and the library rapidly became well-liked. Fact 90. A wall mosaic was found by archaeologists in an ancient Roman villa. It shows a scene from everyday life. People playing a board game that looks like chess. What's remarkable is that this game had pieces shaped like animals and mythical beings, suggesting deep symbolism and diverse pastimes of that era. Experts think these games were for leisure and also for learning strategy and tactics. Fact 91. In London, during the year 1891, an uncommon practice was observed. The city streets were equipped with talking clocks that had signs. These signs displayed not just the time, but also brief, funny phrases. These clocks made people smile and provided subjects for discussion among those walking by. A local artisan initiated this concept, thinking that humor could ease everyday troubles. Although these clocks were well-liked, they did not catch on widely, yet they are remembered by the city's residents and historians as an interesting trial. Fact 92. During harvest celebrations in ancient China, a tradition existed of organizing contests for throwing rice over a distance. Participants vied to launch grains as far and precisely as possible, and winners received symbolic prizes. This practice served as more than just amusement. It symbolized well-being, fertility, and plenty. Evidence of these contests has been unearthed by archaeologists in the form of images on ancient frescoes and within written records. And some Chinese regions continue to incorporate aspects of these traditions into their contemporary festivals. Fact 93. In the year 1906, New York saw an event where street artists organized a temporary exhibition on the walls of derelict buildings, employing charcoal and chalk. The city authorities noticed these creations. While the initial intention was to erase the drawings, a public debate led to a decision to keep them as a component of cultural heritage. This occurrence marked an early instance of official bodies acknowledging street art and spurred the subsequent growth of graffiti and street art. Fact 94. Medieval Europe had a custom known as well singing. Individuals would convene at water sources to perform particular songs, aiming to summon rain or repel malevolent spirits. These songs were often paired with dancing and ritualistic performances, with participation viewed as a sacred obligation for the community. Historical records indicate that these assemblies could extend for hours, serving as significant social occasions that reinforced connections between the populace and the natural world. Fact 95. In the year 1834, Paris witnessed a peculiar incident. A street performer was playing an instrument constructed from components of an old bicycle. The sounds produced by the drums, strings, and pipes generated considerable excitement and astonishment among those who were passing by. This distinctive instrument soon represented an innovative method in music, and the performer was given the moniker Cyclist Maestro. Accounts of his shows were incorporated into the city's folklore and motivated numerous individuals to explore unusual musical instruments. Fact 96. A law in medieval England forbade ordinary people from wearing purple garments, as this color symbolized royal authority and affluence. Breaking this law resulted in penalties such as fines and the seizure of clothing. Nevertheless, purple textiles were highly sought after, and numerous individuals secretly obtained and wore them, causing confrontations with the ruling powers. This ban persisted until the 16th century, illustrating the social disparities and rigorous oversight of personal presentation. Fact 97. In the year 1925, Berlin held a unique exhibition titled City in Miniature. On a space spanning several square meters, replicas of well-known architectural landmarks and streets were constructed. The display included intricate models of buildings, bridges, and streets, with tiny figures of people and vehicles in motion. Attendees were astonished by the precision and vibrancy of the presentation. And the exhibition marked an early effort to utilize models for urban planning and educational purposes. Fact 98. Ancient Romans practiced ritual bathing, where water, infused with aromatic oils and herbs, was used to wash the whole family. These baths served not only for bodily cleansing, but also had a social dimension, reinforcing connections within the community and symbolizing rejuvenation and well-being. Archaeological discoveries include remnants of such baths with detected traces of oils and plant matter, and historical texts confirm their significant place in everyday routines. Fact 99th. A peculiar event took place in London in 1865 at a theater show. The power was unexpectedly cut during the performance, prompting the actors to proceed with the play, lighting the stage only by candles and lanterns. This unforeseen interruption added an element of mystery and dramatic flair to the production, and the audience reacted with great enthusiasm. Reviewers pointed out that the play achieved its most memorable status of the season at this point, and the scene, lit by real light, served as an inspiration for later productions to adopt comparable methods. Fact 100. An unusual artifact was found by archaeologists in an ancient Roman villa. It was a mechanical calendar crafted from bronze and wood. This device could display the date, moon phases, holidays, and significant astronomical occurrences. The intricate mechanism is regarded as an early precursor to today's calendar systems. It showcases the advanced engineering skills and astronomical understanding prevalent in that era. The discovered example is housed in a museum, drawing interest from both researchers and visitors, and encouraging exploration of ancient technologies.